Having money, the best body in the world, and even somebody that genuinely loves everything about you still means absolutely nothing if you don't have this one thing. I'm going to share with you what it took me 30 years of storytelling to learn in less than 10 minutes. And for transparency, when I was younger, I was labeled dyslexic. I failed at third grade almost twice, and my mother and father were teen parents when I was born. So a lot of people in my family and even people in the community that I lived in expected me to be a failure. So I had a lot of labels, and I remember feeling like a fraud. I felt like a phony, especially when I went to school. And when I was in third grade the second time, it's like I hated going to school because every day I went to school, I was reminded by all of the people around me that I failed and that I was supposed to be with them. And kids can be really, really cruel. And I remember that just set off a chain reaction of me being driven by insecurity. And I remember when I got to high school, still wasn't a great reader, but I learned so many different skills over the years on how to conceal it and how to hide it and how to manipulate situations where people wouldn't find out my secret, if you will. But that insecurity, if you will, drove me to sabotage so many other areas in my life. And I remember just finally getting to a point of accepting that I didn't know how to read that well, and that it was okay, even though I didn't want to publicize it. But I also remember thinking about the importance of growing, and I started to just transform my life in different ways, like how I ate, exercising and just different things like that. And I was really trying to focus on improving me and really focusing on becoming a better reader, because when you don't know how to read, like, that's a passport and it's a ticket to life that you'll never get to experience, because you can't experience something that's fundamentally a part of everybody else's experience that can read, and you miss out on that. And I remember in this growth period, one of the things that I changed was something that was the result of a life-altering experience for me. When I was 27, my whole world literally turned upside down with one phone call. And I never forget, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I got the call, and I knew before I picked up the phone what it was. And on the other line was somebody who had a quivering voice, and I just heard their words, and they said, "She's gone." And the only thing that I remember hearing from myself was, "I'm not accepting that." But in my heart, I had already accepted it. And what the call was my aunt. She passed away from breast cancer. And to give you backstory, my aunt was one of the strongest people that I ever met in my life. Like, in our family, she was the go-to person. She was stronger than anybody I ever met in my life. And at that point, I had never, really knew anybody that had cancer. I didn't really know a lot of things about cancer. I know people got it, but I didn't think it would ever be somebody in my family, specifically not her. And when she passed away, that literally changed my entire life. And because I had so much hurt, so much anger, and so much trauma from her passing, I started to ask myself the question, what can I do to, number one, honor her, but also deal with all of this pain and trauma that I'm feeling from her passing? And the first thing that came to mind was diet. And the reason why diet came to mind, because in my mind, if my aunt was the strongest person that I ever met in my life, and if anything took her out, I know I don't have a chance because I'm not as strong as her. And so the best thing for me to do is maybe do what could have saved her if she would have done it earlier. And so I remember changing my diet. And this is something that I want to just share with you, because it's really not about diet at all, but I really felt ashamed. Like, I felt guilty for my diet. I didn't want to tell anybody about my diet. And I remember when somebody found out that I ate a vegan diet, it was like all of these attacks, people questioning me, and I felt like I had to defend it. And I would come up with all of these different reasons why I really like got onto that diet. And I never told anybody the real reason. And the reason why I didn't want to tell anybody the real reason, because all of the insecurities from my childhood and failing in third grade and things like that, I kept telling myself all of these different stories that if I tell somebody the real reason, they might think I'm trying to fake. They might think I'm just trying to get attention. They might think I'm just trying to use her death for some kind of credit or some kind of, all of these different stories I was telling myself was the reason why I never really told anybody the real reason why I changed my diet. And I felt the need to defend why I was doing it because I felt like the real reason wasn't enough. And the whole point in me telling you that is because I didn't feel like I was enough. So anything that was involving me or a part of me, I didn't feel like it was enough either because I didn't feel like I was enough. And when I failed the third grade, I was labeled dyslexic and born to teen parents, just hearing a lot of what adults were saying when I was a kid, which they probably didn't even realize that I can hear what they were saying, it made me feel like I wasn't enough. Because in my mind, if I was enough, then all of these things that they're saying, they wouldn't say them if they accepted me for who I was. And so that story that I created, I carried with that for most of my life, and it drove me to be successful by way of insecurity. And a lot of people might say like, man, it did something positive, at least it drove you to success. And the reality is this: when you experience success out of insecurity, your success is broken because you're not whole. And that's what I did so often in my life. And the thing that I realized over time is that true freedom, like really true freedom, is when you have nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to protect. That's true freedom. And for most of my life, I didn't have true freedom. But it's like now, every single day, I'm very intentional about seeking freedom. And when I catch myself, because insecurities that I had from childhood, they're not totally gone yet. But I'm much better than I was before, I will say that. And it's something that I work on intentionally. But every day when I'm triggered by something or something happens in business or what have you, I think about those four things in terms of freedom. Nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to protect. Am I trying to protect something? Am I trying to hide from something? Am I trying to defend something? And if I am, then I'm going against the very thing that I'm seeking, which is freedom. And one thing that I also realize is when you fear being judged, it causes you to not get the help that you actually desire. And I say that because if we're honest, when it comes to the Black community, therapy is a stigma. Like, people don't really talk openly about therapy. It's not something that is a comfortable conversation, in the Black community, if you will. And so for a long time, I didn't want to really tell people about my experience with getting therapy, like getting help and getting coaching, because I thought I might be weak, or people might judge me, or they might not even want to do business with me because they man, this guy is like, something is wrong with him. And I remember finally getting to a point where I accepted the reality that people, they're gonna talk anyway. So at least let me go and get the help that I need, because me trying to defend myself against an invisible person, I don't even know who they are, that might say something, is still not helping me get what I actually need right now. And I remember when I got the help that I needed in the time that I needed in, I felt so liberated. Like I'm not sure if you ever experienced something where it's such a positive experience, like everybody you know and love, you want them to experience the exact same thing. That was me. But then I realized I can't share this. I can't tell them. I can't tell them my experience because, number one, A, they might think less of me, they might think different of me, but B, they're probably not ready to go down the path that I went down. And so that might cause us to disconnect from each other. And I didn't want to be disconnected from the people that I love. And here's what I also learned from that experience. Sometimes when you take the journey that you think is going to disconnect you from other people, It's you going first on the journey because you're courageous enough to do so first, and you can actually show them that it's okay and that there's nothing for them to fear because you took the first step. And I remember when I shared a few of my therapy experiences with people in my family. Now, I haven't shared it with a lot of people in my family, but just a few people in my family, and they opened up about things in their lives that I had never heard of, and it caused me to be able to recommend therapy to them because of what it did for me. And it just opened up a relationship that was not there before I was vulnerable enough to share. Like vulnerability is something that is risky to a certain extent when you care about people's opinion who don't care about you. Think about that. Vulnerability is only risky when you care about people's opinions that don't care about you. And I really believe in my heart that when it comes to somebody's opinion, the only opinion that really matters is the one you ask for. And when it's people that you really love and you care about, you want to ask them about their opinion, but everybody else, their opinions does not matter. But so often we risk being vulnerable because we care too much about the opinions of people that don't care about us. And the reality is this: no matter who you are, no matter what you want in your life, everything that you want is on the other side of a story. Everything. Because there's no transaction that takes place in this world, whether it's currency or whether it's communication or whether it's relational, even if it's physical. Everything that we do to transact something else starts with a story. And that story is either internal or it's external. And I have come to realize that so much of my life has been hindered based on the stories that I have been telling myself. And the reality about stories is that we are the narrator. We hold the pen, we're the writer, we're the director. Like, we control the narrative of our stories. And if you don't become aware of the power that you hold in changing your story or directing your story or leading your story, then you're gonna miss out on a whole lot of things that's on the other side of your story. Because again, everything that you want is on the other side of a story. And I just wanna encourage you to truly evaluate your story. When somebody starts talking, it's not what they say, but it's what you say to yourself when they stop. That's when the story starts. And I challenge you to grab a hold of your story, evaluate your story, and ask yourself, is it even true? And then ask yourself, does it even matter? Because sometimes there are stories that we create that are not necessarily true, but they matter. And I'm saying that they're not true because they haven't happened yet. So we don't really know what it's going to be. And it's like, for myself, I've changed and transformed my story of somebody who was extremely valuable. And everything that happened to me in the past, me not knowing how to read, me being born to teenage parents, me being labeled dyslexic, those are all things that connect me now with people that have felt like we all have felt at some point, and that's hopelessness. I don't care who you are. You can be the richest person in the world, the most fittest person in the world, you had the greatest relationship in the world, but all of us at some point in time in our lives, we felt hopeless. And when you share your hopelessness with others that are vulnerable enough and honest enough to tap into that they felt it too, then there's a connection that can be made with somebody who truly needs to hear what only alone you can free them from. And I really believe in my heart that your story can free somebody. And I strongly encourage you to truly evaluate your story and ask yourself, is it holding you back? Is it liberating you? Is it giving you the freedom, finances, and fulfillment that you desire? Or is it causing you to never experience the life that you truly love?